Hello, this is going to be a very quick tutorial for Photoshop for beginners. It's just about incorporating layers and how to take numerous images and make one big image. Let me open up Photoshop here. I'm using CS3 and I'm aware that is severely outdated, but I never got around to updating my software. So let me open up a file here. Just go to File, Open, and I have these 4 images that I gathered off of Google. Now if I want to select numerous ones at a time, I can click on one and hold down my Control key on the keyboard and then pick different ones like this. Also, I should note that if you click on one and then you hold down the Shift key and then click on the last one, it will select all of them in between. Now I hit the Open button, and now I have all 4 of these images open. So I can only see one of them right now, but if I go to this button here that says Restore Down, now I have 4 of them all visible. So I'm going to make one of these my background layer, and I'm going to choose this one right here. So let's go to our tool palette and hit the very top one. It's called the Move tool. Just hit V on your keyboard and it will take you right there. And obviously this tool is used to move things. It's kind of just like a normal mouse cursor. So what I want to do is take one of these 3 images and put it on top of my beach scene. I'm going to do this one of the boat. So all I need to do is click and drag it right on top of it. And now it's on top. So let's maximize this window for a second. Now you can see I have the boat on top of the beach scene and I can move it wherever I want. If we look over here, you'll see I have a background layer and layer 1. Background layer is italicized and it has a lock icon here. This just signifies that it's the background layer. The difference between background layers and normal layers is kind of minute, but you have more freedom with normal layers. If you want to make a background layer, not a background layer, just double click on it and hit OK. But we're just going to keep this the background layer. So click layer 1. And what we want to do is resize this image so that it's a better size. It's way too big right now. So all I need to do to resize it is make sure you selected it in the layers and hit Control T or Command T if you're on a Mac. And T just stands for transformation box, I'm pretty sure. So now you have this bounding box and I can resize it like this. I can make it much smaller and there you go. But I need to undo that because what I want to do is scale it to proportion, and what that means is just scale it down so that I don't screw up the width and height. I just scale it down pretty much. So again, hit Control T or Command T on Mac. Now let's go to one of these corner boxes. I'm just going to do this top right one. Hold down Shift and then you can scale it down, and you can notice that it's impossible for me to adjust the width and height. I can only scale it down. So let's make it about this size, and now I can move it up here or wherever I want, and now I just hit enter on my keyboard and it's saved. So now let's go back here and restore everything down so you can see what we have now, and everything's coming along together. Let's get this image of the resort or whatever, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to drag it on top. And now let's maximize this window again, and we're going to do the same thing. You'll notice that every image that we add becomes its own layer. We have the background layer, which is still the beach scene, layer 1, which is still the boat, and now layer 2, which is this resort. And I can move this one around, but I can't move this boat around or the background. If I want to move specific images, I need to select them in their own layer. So layer 2 controls this image, layer 1 controls this image. Make sense? Good. So let's hit layer 2, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to scale this down. Hit Control T and hold down Shift so I can scale it to proportion, and this size will suffice, I suppose. And hit enter and everything's saved. Now let's go back here, and we only have one more image left, this car. And I'm going to do the same thing. Just drag it on top of our background. Now we have it here. Again, it becomes its own layer. Very, very simple. Now let's scale this one down. And unlike the other ones where I actually scale them to proportion, this one I'm actually not going to scale to proportion because I want it to be a bit wider. So let's go down a bit here and make it a bit wider. And when you have it in its bounding box like this, you can actually use the arrow keys to manually place it wherever you like. So I'm going to place it in the far left, make it a bit skinnier, and hit enter. And now we have all 4 images together. And just to finish it off, let's show you how to use the text tool. Go over here to this icon with the capital T for text, click on it, and right now it's getting all screwed up, I guess. Alright, there we go. Now I'm gonna just click anywhere and I can start typing. Right now my font size is very small, so I'm gonna change to 12, or actually maybe even 30, and I can start typing. I can type Cuba and hit Control A to select it all, and I can change the font to whatever I like. Let's just do this one, Rockwell Extra Bold, and I can make it larger by changing the text size like this, but just like with the pictures, you can also change it using the bounding box method. So text becomes its own layer, just like images, except instead of it being called layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, it'll just be called whatever you said. So if I type in Cuba, it'll be called Cuba. If I type in car, it will be called car, etc. So just like with the images, we can scale it up using our bounding box. So hit Control T, scale it up like this, and now we have text that says Cuba. And if I want to change the color, I can just go to my foreground color, get rid of it first, go to your text tool and select it, then change the color to like white or something, and there you go. I don't really like that color though. Let's just change it to I don't know, something really weird like red. There we go. So now we have this image, and again you can change the font like I showed you before. One more thing I'd like to touch on before I conclude this tutorial is the order of layers that you have. The top layer will always be on top of everything else. Think of it kind of like a sandwich, where your background layer will be the bottom piece of bread. Then layer 1, 2, and 3 will, be the lettuce, the meat, the mustard, or whatever. And then the top layer will be the top piece of bread. So if I move this Cuba layer underneath layer 3, it will be below layer 3, basically. So what was once the bread now became the mustard, I guess I would say. I really don't know. But I'm going to put Cuba back on top. And you can also change these blending options and opacity and stuff, which is kind of more intermediate. So I'll touch on that in another video. But opacity is simple enough. Just go here and change it. It just makes it more transparent. The lower it is, the more transparent it will be. The higher it is, the more opaque it will be. So what you could do, for example, is put the Cuba under layer 3 and then make layer 3 somewhat transparent. So now I can see both the car and the text. But I'm just going to keep things simple, leave everything opaque, and have my text on top. And that concludes today's very, very beginner tutorial. I hope you learned something. And check out my channel. I have a few more Photoshop tutorials. Thanks for watching. See you around.